Okay, hopefully this recording. So, this is kind of where we left off last time. This won't take too long. So the Iliopsoas group, okay? So you can see here, this is the psoas major, and this is the iliacus. So let's back up. Let's see. So muscles that act on the thigh. So iliopsoas, the P is silent. Don't say iliopsoas. It's iliopsoas, okay? And then the psoas major. All right, let's see what we're looking at here. So there we go. Iliacus is here, originating from the iliac fossa here, and up by the there's your iliac crest there. And then there's your psoas major. You can see how they're both flowing underneath the inguinal ligament here, and they're hooking to the femur down here. You know, the lesser trochanter is down here pretty close. And so they're going to obviously flex at the hip due to the way they're connected. All right. Now, let's look at some other things that will act on the thigh. How about these adductors? All of these are considered adductors, so they're going to bring this to the midline. Okay, so this is the Adductor Longus. This one that's a little shorter is the Adductor Brevis. You can't see it too well, but that's the Adductor Magnus that's flowing behind those two. It's like a sheet from there to there. And so that's a big one. And then this guy is pretty long. Look at that guy, Gracilis. Okay, so the Gracilis, notice it's originating from the pubic bone like all of these other adductors. There's a little exception to that. The Magnus originates from the pubic bone, but it's so big that some of it flows back on there to the ischium. So this guy's coming from the Gracilis is originating from the pubic bone, but it's not going to the femur. It's going all the way down here to the tibia. And so that's going to be proximal medial surface of the tibia. And then this guy will adduct to the midline. That's the Pectinius. It's going to, due to the way it's hooked, it's going to also flex at the hip some. Yeah, this was not really considered an adductor so much. This is the Sartorius. We'll talk about it in a little bit. That's the longest muscle in the body. But it's also inserting on the proximal medial surface of the tibia. We'll talk about that one later. Okay? All right, for now, let's just learn these again. So Adductor Longus, Adductor Brevis, and then the big one behind them all, Adductor Magnus. They're all originating from the pubic bone, except the Magnus is also originating somewhat from the ischium because it's just so large. And then here's your Gracilis, also from the pubic bone, but it's inserting down here on the proximal medial surface of the tibia. So if you ever heard of an injury called a groin pull, so they could stretch or tear some of these muscles, it's pretty common in like gymnastics and stuff, that type of injury. Okay, now we're looking at the front. There you can see the Sartorius really nicely. And it flows all the way, and then it goes proximal medial surface tibia. Where's it originating? Anterior superior iliac spine. This one will put you in that position, you know, when you sit in a lotus position, like you're meditating, basically. It will put your leg in that position. And so I'll give you a little readout on all the origins, insertions, and actions of all these muscles that you can go by. I think in the old day, I think Sartorius actually means, don't quote me on this, but I think it does, tailor's muscle, like a tailor that sews clothes. And back in the old days, they used to sit on the floor in that lotus position, you know, with their ankles crossed. And so that Sartorius helps put you in that position. Okay, so it's flexing at the knee, and it's kind of flexing at the hip and kind of laterally rotating this out. But anyway, we'll you'll get to all that on your OIAs. Don't stress on that right now. Here's your quads. So there's your rectus femoris, vastus medialis, and vastus lateralis. If I pull that rectus femoris up, by the way, that's a bipennate fascicle arrangement. See them? If I pull that up, like if this was a model, you can get rid of that, and you look underneath it, and there's the vastus intermedius. Actually, it's a little connective tissue over it on the models, but under that connective tissue would be the vastus intermedius. Yeah, they color in the it's colored in gray on the models because it's representing that fascia that's in between the rectus femoris and the vastus intermedius, but underneath that connective tissue would be the vastus intermedius. All right, let's look on the side. Here's some more connective tissue. This is the iliotibial band or tract. So it's flowing, ilium all the way down to the tibia. And the good news is you can say IT band or tract. That's what a lot of people call it. And look at this little guy, tensor fascia lata. Sounds like a cup of coffee at Starbucks. And it's flowing into that. So it's inserting down here into this iliotibial tract. All right, we talked about the quads. Now let's go on the back of the thigh and talk about the hamstrings. Okay, so first of all, you got to figure out when you have a picture like this, what's medial and what's lateral. Find that iliotibial band or tract, that's lateral. Okay, okay. So there's your gluteus maximus, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you see this muscle, and it's going to the medial, right? That's the semi-tendinosus because it flows. It basically looks like a real nice tendon right here where it inserts. The one below it is broader, so they call that the semi-membranosus, but it's going the same place. See how they're both going the same place? Proximal medial surface of the tibia. And then here's your biceps femoris. Don't forget to say femoris. It's not the brachii. Biceps femoris long head. Right? See it? And it's going laterally. And then look at the short head. It really is short. Right? And so it's originating from that linea aspera, and then it's going lateral. Okay? So which ones are your hamstrings? Only the semi-tendinosus, the semi-membranosus, and the biceps femoris long head. The short head is not part of that. So basically, I guess they call it that because on a cadaver, you could just put your hand under here and pick these muscles up. And it's like a big meaty string of ham. I guess that's why they call it the hamstrings. So these track and field, they damage these sometimes, because your quads on the front are a lot stronger. And as your quads are extending that knee, so you're in a full sprint, these need to be relaxing. If they're not relaxing fast enough, basically, they can get ripped or torn right here, because they get stretched too quickly. While those quads are extending that knee very, very fast, like in a sprint. So that's why in track and field, you'll see them warming up, the sprinters. They'll warm up and they'll stretch and try to get these muscles ready for the race because they don't want to pull a hamstring, they call it. It can be a really painful injury. Okay, and this is really nice because you can see the short head coming off the linea aspera there and then going out here laterally. And this is kind of nice because it's showing you origins of muscles versus their insertions. They do the origins in red, the insertions in blue. And you can see, look at there where your hamstrings came off that ischial tuberosity. Oh, look, your adductor magnus, it's showing how that spills back here onto that ischium also. All right, so let's look at the quads again. Okay, so there's your rectus femoris. Here's your vastus lateralis, vastus medialis. You'd have to pull this up to see the vastus intermedius. And there's your Sartorius. Really, that's what I could go. What's the longest muscle in the body? Sartorius. Okay. And I'm not that crazy about it, but yeah, you can see the longest here. You can't even see the brevis. It would be right there. And then you can see a little bit of that Pectinius, and you can see the Iliopsoas here. And there's, of course, your Gracilis. Gracilis is an adductor. also, remember? All right. See how the biceps are going laterally right there, the biceps femoris. Okay. Now, let's look at the back of the calf here. There's a gastrocnemius. So the gastrocs for short. Gastrocnemius, I think it means belly in Latin. I guess it looks like a belly, right? It's got a medial head and a lateral head. I probably wouldn't even get that picky. I assume you know that by now. What's medial, what's lateral. If I just put the tape all the way across, just go gastrocnemius. Is it flowing into the Achilles tendon, which is the old name? Yeah. What's the new name? Calcaneal tendon. Right? Calcaneal tendon. Now, let's pull this up and look at this muscle under it, which will be the soleus. Okay, there's the soleus. Okay. So they cut the gastroc, see. So the soleus is also flowing into this tendon here, right? Kind of becoming part of it. Then let's look at this little guy, put a box around him, the Popliteus, in the popliteal region. That's going to medially rotate. That's easy to remember because of the region. And then this guy is not very good on our models, so I generally don't point at the muscle on our models. I'll point at this tendon. And I'll go, what muscle does that tendon belong to? And you'll go, the plantaris, right? By the way, in medical school, they call that the freshman nerve, because for years and years and years, when the freshmen in medical school are doing their dissections, a lot of them will mistake that for a nerve just because of the way it looks. Don't call it the freshman nerve. I'd give you half a point just for knowing that, though, I guess. All right, so there's your plantaris. By the way, this one's easily popped or ruptured or injured. And according to the emergency room doctor I talked to, the way it usually happens is a car stalls in the middle of the road and somebody's trying to push the car out of the road, right? And they got that foot kind of dorsiflexed really, a lot, and then they're pushing hard. So this guy's stretched and it'll pop. Probably doesn't feel that good. The good news is, that really doesn't do that much. It's very common, apparently, that gets injured. But according to another friend of mine, that she's a surgeon, this only provides about maybe 5% of this plantar flexion down here. It really just doesn't do that much. So a lot of times they just don't even repair it. I think basketball players can injure this a lot too. And according to her, they don't even repair it most of the time. Now, you pulled all that soleus up, and you're looking under here, and you see the posterior tibialis. Well, if you got a posterior tibialis, you know you probably got an anterior tibialis, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And then we've got the flexor Hallucis longus. I've also heard it pronounced hallucis, so I don't care, just spell it right. You know what it's going to do. It's going to flex a hallux, right? So follow the tendon. It looks like it's way over here. This is lateral, but then it's ended up crossing over, going medial, and going under the big toe, right? Look at the flexor digitorum longus. It's on the medial side, and then it crosses under that medial malleolus and goes to the digits over here. So I think that just gives you better leverage when they're on the opposite sides like that from where they're attaching, where they're inserting. So when you walk, most of your weight is going over that big toe. So this muscle is going to be larger than the flexor digitorum longus in most people. Now, if you're a ballerina, spend a lot of time on your toes like that, then your flexor digitorum longus will get hypertrophy too. Okay, let's look at the side. This is kind of cool. Tibialis longus, nice parallel. That's a good place to say, what fascicle arrangement is that? Parallel. What's the name of the muscle? Tibialis longus. What's this little guy under it? And they didn't draw it that well, but it's by Pennant. That's the fibularis brevis underneath there. Okay, and these are going to the outside. Okay, and they'll help you evert your foot. Okay. And I'll go through all that with you in class. We'll pull up the origins, insertions, and actions, and I have them all printed out for you very succinctly so that you can study them on your own. Okay. All right, so let's look at the front. Yep. Oh, Tibialis Interior. Look where it's going. It looks like it's going to the big toe, but it's not. It's going to dive off to the side, whoop, off to the medial side. So you know that guy is going to invert your foot, and this muscle is also going to dorsiflex. So if you just put your fingers down there by your tibia, right, and then you dorsiflex, you'll feel it. You'll feel it, you know, jump out, right? You'll feel it flex. And then if you invert your foot, you'll feel the same thing. So that helps remind you, you know, what it does. Then you got the extensor digitorum longus. So it's going to all the digits. What's it do? It's in the name. It extends the digits, right? It also dorsiflexes. And then extensor hallucis or hallucis longus. It's kind of buried in here, so you can see it over here by itself. And just follow the tendon. Generally on this one, I point at the tendon going to the big toe. And I go, what does that tendon belong to? And you go, extensor hallucis or hallucis longus. Okay, and so that's going to also make you dorsiflex, and it's going to extend the big toe. Okay, so it didn't take too long. All righty, so I will shut this down. We'll put it on YouTube for you. Okie dokie.